The silence inside Elsa Okonwa's Banana Island penthouse was heavy, too heavy for a place with such sweeping views of the Lagos Lagoon. The floor-to-ceiling windows caught the last light of day, casting a golden shimmer across the marble floors, but none of it touched the coldness she felt in her heart. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in her dressing room, wrapped in a soft robe, staring at herself like she was meeting a stranger. Her 31-year-old reflection stared back. Smooth brown skin, sharp cheekbones, full lips painted a soft nude. Her natural curls had been twisted into a low bun, elegant and intentional. To anyone looking from the outside, Elsa was the picture of grace, success, and control. But inside, she was exhausted. Her phone buzzed on the vanity counter. It was a reminder. Dr. Akinyemi, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Elite Fertility Center. Elsa's fingers hovered over the screen before she locked it again. The appointment was real. Her decision was final. But the truth still felt like a punch in the chest. She was going to have a child. Alone. Not because she wanted it that way, but because love had failed her. Again and again. 2 years ago, Elsa had been madly in love with Austin Danjuma. The kind of love that made everything else fade into the background. He had been her college sweetheart, her business partner, her first real kiss, her first everything. And her greatest heartbreak. They'd built a life together. A luxury fashion house in Lekki, a dream penthouse in Banana Island, and plans for children. One day, when the time was right. But one day never came. Austin grew more distant with every business trip, more secretive with every late-night phone call. And when she found out about the betrayal, the second phone, the flirtatious messages from a junior associate, everything fell apart. He said it was nothing. She said she was done. But the truth? She had never stopped loving him. Even now, the thought of his cologne could twist her chest into knots. But love, she had learned, wasn't always enough. And wanting a child didn't need to come with begging a man to stay. So she made a new plan. Quiet plan. One that didn't require a wedding dress or vows. Just a clinic. A signature. A chance. The next morning, Elsa arrived at Elite Fertility Center in Victoria Island. A sleek, discreet building tucked behind a row of palm trees. No signboards. No advertisements. Just privacy and professionalism. She was ushered into a private consultation room where a soft-spoken woman in navy scrubs took her vitals, offered her mint water, and called in the doctor. Dr. Akinyemi entered with a kind smile and a notepad. "Miss Okonwa, welcome. I've reviewed your file. You're in perfect health, and at 31, your chances for a successful conception are excellent." "Thank you," Elsa said softly. He leaned forward. "You've opted for direct insemination with a live donor, correct? No IVF." "Yes, I want it to feel natural. I know it's unconventional. It's not unheard of. We work with select pre-screened donors. You'll meet him only under controlled terms. No names, no personal contact after the procedure. Complete discretion." Elsa nodded. "That's exactly what I want." "Very well. Do you have specific preferences for the donor?" She pulled out a folded sheet of paper from her handbag and handed it to him. "Height above 6 feet. No medical history of hereditary illness. College educated. Preferably someone artistic, music, maybe literature. I'd like him to be Nigerian. Yoruba, preferably, but I'm open." Dr. Akinyemi scanned the paper with a small smile. "You've put a lot of thought into this." "I've had 2 years to think," she said. "I don't want a man in my life, but I still want a part of myself to grow into something beautiful." He nodded slowly. "We can make this happen. I'll notify the donor team. You'll be contacted when a match is confirmed. Would you like to proceed within the next week?" "Yes. Then I'll arrange for your cycle tracking and schedule the procedure window. It'll be a one-time encounter, no communication, no identity revealed. You'll be monitored for confirmation afterward." Elsa inhaled, then exhaled deeply. "Thank you, doctor." As she left the clinic an hour later, a strange calmness settled over her. This was her choice. Not a rebound. Not revenge. Not desperation. Just a woman claiming her power and choosing motherhood on her own terms. Back home, Elsa sat by the pool with a chilled glass of mango juice. The garden lights flickered on as the sky deepened into twilight. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from an old friend. Tommy, still thinking about that dinner on Friday. I heard Austin will be there. Are you sure you're okay with that? Elsa didn't reply immediately. She looked up at the sky instead. A single star had appeared. She whispered, almost to herself, "It doesn't matter anymore." Because by then, if all went according to plan, she wouldn't be just Elsa, the ex-wife. She would be Elsa Okonwa, the mother, the beginning of her own legacy. And no man would ever control that story again. The glow of Lagos Island's skyline shimmered beyond the tinted windows of the 25th floor penthouse. Inside, Austin Danjuma stood at the edge of his private office, staring out at the city that never slept. His custom-made navy suit hung loosely on his frame, his tie forgotten. The room smelled faintly of expensive wood, whiskey, and a familiar cologne he hadn't changed in years. The one Elsa used to bury her face into. He hadn't thought of her in weeks. Correction, he hadn't tried to. But some women didn't leave quietly. Especially not the ones you never stopped loving. The file had landed on his desk by accident or fate. He was reviewing a recent portfolio acquisition in a health tech company when a confidential brief meant for the board slid into his hands. The moment he saw the name Elite Fertility Center, something inside him stilled. The report contained basic information. A recent private investor-funded expansion, high-profile clientele, and one particular transaction tagged Anonymous Client EO. Austin's heart pounded. He flipped the page. Elsa Okonwa. The file was encrypted, but Austin had built half of Nigeria's fintech industry. He knew how to get past digital locks. Within minutes, he had access to the clinic's notes. Elsa had submitted a request for a live donor insemination. One time, no strings, absolute anonymity. She'd listed preferences. She wanted no relationship, just a child. Austin sank into his leather chair, hands gripping the armrests as though the truth might knock the air out of his lungs. She wanted a baby, without him, without anyone. He should have respected it. But all he could see was her face. The same face that once looked up at him with tears in her eyes and whispered, "If we ever have a daughter, I hope she has your eyes." He couldn't let this happen. Not with a stranger. Not when there was still a piece of him that belonged to her. 2 days later, Austin walked into the back entrance of Elite Fertility Center, wearing a cap pulled low and designer sunglasses. He hadn't made an appointment. He didn't need one. Money and power could open almost any door in Lagos, especially when it was paired with a quiet threat of influence. He requested a meeting with the hospital director. "I understand Miss Elsa Okonwa submitted a donor profile," Austin began, voice low. "And I understand you're currently in the process of matching her with a candidate." The director blinked. "Sir, I'm afraid I can't discuss client matters." Austin reached into his wallet and slid a thick envelope across the table. "I'm not asking for her information. I'm offering a solution." The director paused. "What kind of solution?" "I want to be the donor." The man hesitated, confused. "You do understand she requested complete anonymity? No contact. No names." "I know," Austin said. "I'm not trying to win her back. I just—" He stopped himself. He couldn't say it aloud. "She should never carry another man's child when I still breathe. She doesn't have to know. Ever. I'll submit to all necessary tests, screenings, paperwork. But I want that child to be mine." The director stared at him for a long while, then finally asked, "Why?" Austin looked him dead in the eyes. "Because I've made a lot of mistakes. But letting someone else give her what I promised would be the worst one." By the following week, Austin had completed all the medical tests. Clean history, physically fit, genetically strong. Everything Elsa had asked for, even unknowingly. She would never know it was him. That was the deal. The procedure was scheduled. Private suite at the clinic. No identifiers. One-time direct conception under sterile, anonymous conditions. As Austin stood outside the suite, dressed in neutral scrubs and a surgical cap, A nurse handed him a document. Please sign here to confirm you're participating voluntarily. No rights, no future claims. The client has also waived all post-conception contact. Austin signed. No hesitation. He already had no rights to her heart. But he could give her something more. A piece of himself she didn't know she still carried. That night, under soft lights and complete silence, he entered the room. She was already there, lying on the bed, a sheer privacy curtain separating them. He never saw her face. She never saw his. Just shadows and breath and a moment that would change everything. Elsa didn't speak. She wasn't supposed to. Neither did he. But when his fingers briefly brushed hers by accident, something flickered in his chest. A shock of familiarity. He almost whispered her name. But he didn't. Instead, he completed what he came to do. And walked out. No looking back. 2 days later, Elsa received confirmation that the procedure was successful. The donor had been a match. Everything had gone according to plan. And somewhere, across the city, Austin Danjuma sat in his penthouse, staring out at the skyline, knowing he had crossed a line, and planted a seed of truth in a garden of lies. But in his mind, it wasn't manipulation. It was redemption. Because if he couldn't love her the way she needed, he could at least give her the one thing she wanted most in the world. Even if it broke him. The room was bathed in candlelight. Soft golden flames flickered along the edges of the plush suite, casting gentle shadows against velvet drapes. The windows were sealed, the doors locked. The scent of sandalwood drifted through the air like a memory too heavy to name. Elsa stood in the doorway, heart racing beneath her silk robe. She had been told the process would be private, that she would never see the man's face, that he wouldn't speak. And yet, her breath caught as she saw him. He stood near the bed, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing tailored black trousers and a mask that covered the upper half of his face. Sleek, expressionless, a silent stranger, and yet, there was something about his presence. Commanding, familiar, dangerously comforting. She crossed the room slowly, the heels of her bare feet pressing softly into the thick carpet. Neither of them spoke. He extended his hand to her, palm up, an invitation. Elsa hesitated, then placed her hand into his. Warmth, a pulse, a feeling like déjà vu thundered through her. The stranger stepped closer. The mask made his face unreadable, but his breath was unsteady, as though the moment affected him too. His fingers rose to touch her cheek, so softly, like he was afraid she might disappear. Elsa's skin tingled. The gentle brush of his thumb just below her jaw made her heart flutter. Not from fear, but confusion. How could a stranger's touch feel like something she had once known? He didn't rush. Every movement was measured, reverent, as if she wasn't just a woman, but a memory he was trying not to lose again. His hands slid behind her neck, fingers threading through the edge of her hair. His lips, when they finally touched hers, were tentative at first, unsure, almost trembling. And then something shifted, like a wave had broken. He deepened the kiss, not rough, not greedy, but full of aching restraint, like he was memorizing her. Elsa melted into him. There was no voice, no name, but the kiss whispered everything. I know you. I remember you. I lost you once. I won't lose you again. He guided her gently to the bed. The silk sheets were cool against her skin, but his body was warm, hovering above her, then beside her, then behind her. Never pressing, never claiming, just present. When his hands explored her body, they did so with the caution of someone holding a sacred thing. He didn't grope. He didn't take. He gave. His fingers found places on her skin that she didn't remember showing anyone. And yet he moved like a man who had touched her before. A long time ago, in another life. Her breath hitched, a hand on her hip steady. His other hand cupped her face as their lips met again. And when their bodies finally connected, it wasn't with urgency or lust. It was with reverence. A slow rhythm, a quiet storm, the kind of union that made her gasp not because it hurt, but because it felt like home. Elsa arched into him, her eyes fluttering shut. The air in the room grew warmer, heavier. Every time his lips grazed her neck, she shivered. Every time his palm found her back, her spine melted. And when he whispered, not words, but breath against her skin, it didn't make sense that she wanted to cry. He held her like she might break. Like her heartbeat was the only sound that mattered in the world. Like this wasn't just for a baby, but for a love that never truly ended. The moments stretched. Soft gasps. Fingers intertwined. Their bodies moved together like they'd done this before. Like this wasn't a stranger, but a man who once knew her deeply and was trying to remember how. Elsa reached up to touch his face, fingertips brushing the edge of the mask. He tensed slightly, but he didn't stop her. Her fingers hovered. She wanted to see him, needed to, but instead, she let her hand drop to his chest, right over his heart. It was beating wildly, just like hers. Afterwards, they lay in silence. He didn't move. He didn't leave. Elsa rested her head against the pillow, facing the ceiling, breath still uneven. She should have felt cold, detached. This was supposed to be clinical, controlled. But instead, she felt unraveled, shaken, seen. She turned slightly, enough to see him sitting at the edge of the bed now, shirt in his hands, back turned to her. The light touched a faint scar just below his left shoulder blade. Her eyes widened. That scar tugged at a memory, distant, foggy, half-forgotten. But before she could follow it, the stranger rose to his feet. She quickly sat up. "Wait," she started, but then stopped herself. No names, no contact, no strings. That was the rule. He turned slowly, his face still hidden behind the mask. And with one final look, silent, unreadable, heavy, he nodded once and left. The door clicked behind him, and Elsa was alone. But somehow, she felt less alone than she had in years. Down the hallway, Austin leaned against the wall outside the suite, his breathing ragged. He couldn't believe he'd done it. Held her, kissed her, loved her, even if she never knew. His hand trembled as he removed the mask. His heart was still somewhere in that room, with her. It started with a flutter, a wave of dizziness when Elsa stepped into her dressing room one morning. She reached for the edge of her vanity and steadied herself, blinking against the sudden spin of the world. She hadn't eaten anything unusual. She wasn't stressed, not more than usual. But something was different, something alive. She didn't wait to wonder. An hour later, she sat in the plush private lounge of Elite Fertility Center, her palms clammy against the hem of her silk blouse. The nurse smiled at her with the kind of calm confidence that only made her nerves worse. "Miss Okanwa," the doctor said gently as he walked in, "congratulations, you're pregnant." Elsa's breath left her all at once. The words echoed around her like a prayer. Pregnant. For a moment, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her hands trembled slightly as she cradled her lower belly through the fabric of her dress. There was nothing there yet, not visibly, but she knew. Her body knew. A life had begun. Inside her. Her legacy. Her decision. Her miracle. Back in her penthouse. The sun poured through the balcony windows, but Elsa didn't move from the sofa. She sat curled beneath a light throw blanket, staring at nothing, hands resting gently on her stomach. She should have felt complete, and in many ways she did. But as night crept in, so did something else. Memory. The man in the mask. His hands. His breath. His silence. The way he held her like she was fragile and precious all at once. It haunted her in waves. Not just what they did, but how it felt. How it had felt like home. Elsa closed her eyes and whispered into the quiet. "Why did it feel like you knew me?" It was stupid. Delusional. He was just a donor, a hired stranger. He'd signed a contract. No contact. No future. No name. He wasn't coming back. And yet her soul ached for him. Not because she loved him. She didn't even know him. But because something about him reminded her of the love she once had. Of the man she once lost. Of Austin. But this wasn't about Austin anymore. She had chosen this path alone. She would walk it alone. Even if her heart whispered otherwise. Across town in a penthouse in Ikoyi, Austin Danjuma sat in his private study, phone in hand, reading the words over and over again. Your request has been fulfilled. The client is now pregnant. Further communication has been terminated. As agreed. He stared at the message like it had just split open the earth beneath him. Elsa was pregnant. With his child. No one else knew. No one else could know. He should have felt victorious. Relieved. Even a little smug. But all he felt was guilt. Guilt for not telling her the truth. Guilt for stealing a moment meant to be sacred. Guilt for loving her so much that he'd crossed a line no man should ever cross. He closed his eyes and leaned back, running a hand over his face. His jaw was tight. His chest felt like it had been carved open. He didn't regret giving her the baby, but he regretted not giving her the choice. And the worst part? He missed her. Terribly. Elsa spent the following weeks in a quiet rhythm. Morning walks through the manicured gardens below her apartment. Fresh fruit and hibiscus tea in the afternoons. Reading every book on motherhood she could find. She kept the news from everyone, even her best friend Tommy. It was still hers alone. Just hers and the tiny heartbeat growing inside her. But at night, when the world fell still, she thought of him. The masked man. And the man who used to be her husband. They blurred in her dreams. Once, she dreamt of being touched. The same soft hands that had held her that night. But when she looked up, it was Austin's face above her. She woke up breathless, sweating, cursing herself. This was ridiculous. She was grieving a fantasy, wishing for something she'd never have again. Austin couldn't take it anymore. One Thursday evening, he drove past the entrance of Elsa's estate in Banana Island and parked a few blocks away, engine off. The glow from her balcony lights flickered across the road. He just sat there, watching, wondering. She looked peaceful. She stood barefoot in her nightdress, holding a steaming mug of something. Tea, probably. Her hand gently rested over her stomach. He saw it even from here. His child. His family. And yet, he was just a shadow. She didn't know. She couldn't know. Because how could he ever explain what he did? How could he say, I tricked you into motherhood, but only because I loved you too much to let someone else be the father? He rested his head against the steering wheel. He thought he could live with the silence. But now, watching her from a distance, he realized he couldn't. Back in her bedroom, Elsa curled under the sheets and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above her. She pressed her palm against her belly again, whispering, If only I knew who you were. And somewhere in the dark, Austin whispered back into the night, though she couldn't hear it. You've always known me, Elsa. Elsa sat at the head of the boardroom table, flipping through design proposals for her fashion brand's upcoming collection. Her mind was sharp, her notes direct, her presence commanding. And yet her assistant could tell something was off. Elsa hadn't been quite herself lately. There were moments she would stop mid-sentence, pressing her palm gently against her stomach. She'd smile softly at nothing, as if listening to a song only she could hear. And then there were the moments of silence, of quiet staring. Not in confusion, but reflection. No one knew she was pregnant yet. No one. Except him. Though, of course, she didn't know it was him. Not yet. That afternoon, while she was reviewing the expansion documents for the brand's new Lecky boutique, her assistant peeked into her office. Ma'am, there's someone here to see you. He says he's from Danjuma Capital. Something about a potential partnership offer. Elsa's brows lifted. She hadn't heard that name in over a year. And yet, it still caused something to shift in her chest. Danjuma Capital. Austin. Her jaw tightened. Send him in. Seconds later, he walked in tall, sharply dressed in a charcoal suit. Clean-cut beard, confident stride. Time had only made him more refined, more contained. Too contained. Like he was hiding a storm behind that calm. Elsa, he said softly, eyes meeting hers. Mr. Danjuma, she replied, keeping her tone cool, her back straight. Their eyes locked for a second too long. He sat across from her, placing a leather portfolio on the desk. I wanted to personally discuss a potential funding collaboration for your new location. I've been following your growth. Impressive as always. Elsa gave a tight smile. That's very corporate of you. He laughed, low and genuine. Still sharp. She looked away. Still bold. There it was again, that feeling. The one she tried to bury every time she saw him. The one that bloomed in her chest like an unwanted flame. She hated it. Hated him for still being able to stir her with a glance. Hated herself more for letting him. It wasn't just pregnancy hormones. God, she wished it was. The meeting was short, straightforward, but it lingered long after he left. Elsa stood in her office alone, staring out the window, hands folded across her midsection. She had been doing well, focused, grounded. Now, she was unraveling. He hadn't flirted. He hadn't even touched her. But something about him being close again made her chest ache and her palms sweat. And the worst part? She wanted to see him again. Austin sat in his car after the meeting, staring at the steering wheel like it held the answers he couldn't say aloud. She looked radiant, more radiant than he remembered, and glowing. Pregnancy suited her, even though she didn't know the truth. He clenched his jaw. He had no business showing up like that. No right to look at her the way he had. But he couldn't help himself. The longer he stayed away, the more the guilt gnawed at him. She deserved to know. She deserved everything. But what if she hated him for it? What if this fragile closeness they were starting to rebuild shattered again? He gripped the steering wheel tighter. He was a coward, a selfish one, because he'd rather keep this lie than risk losing her again. The next time they met was unplanned. Elsa had gone to the art hotel in Victoria Island for a private fashion installation dinner. She hadn't expected to see him there, seated 2 tables away, laughing with a group of foreign investors. But the moment he saw her, he excused himself and walked straight to her. "Twice in 1 week?" he said, leaning against her table. "Is it the universe? Or do you have me on a schedule?" Elsa rolled her eyes, sipping her water. "Relax. It's not that deep." But her pulse betrayed her. He noticed. "You look beautiful," he said softly. She scoffed. Don't what? Don't say things that make me forget who you are." Austin paused. "And who am I?" She turned to face him fully now. Her voice low, her eyes sharp. "You're the man who taught me that even love can lie." He didn't speak. Couldn't. Because she was right. And she had no idea just how deeply he'd done it again. That night, Elsa tossed and turned in bed. Her baby bump was still small, barely noticeable to anyone else, but she felt it. The gentle swell, the reminder of what was growing, and the night it began. She closed her eyes, trying to remember every detail of the masked man's touch, his silence, his gentleness, and it scared her how much Austin's energy felt the same. No, impossible. She shook her head. It wasn't him. Couldn't be him. She was projecting, romanticizing, making connections where none existed. And yet, she whispered to herself, why does he feel so close? Austin stood on the rooftop of his Ikoyi apartment that same night, staring at the stars. He had memorized the way she looked tonight, the edge in her voice, the hurt she still carried. He couldn't pretend anymore. The cracks were getting too wide, and she was starting to feel it. Elsa's morning started like any other. A quiet breakfast on her terrace, a half-finished email to her creative director, and soft jazz playing in the background. She had just crossed into her 12th week of pregnancy, and though her body was still adjusting, her mind was slowly embracing the truth. She was going to be a mother. Alone, yes, but not afraid. She had done the hard part, or so she thought, until she opened a couriered envelope that had been mistakenly delivered to her home, marked to a Danjuma. Her brows furrowed. She knew the name. Everyone in Lagos did. But more importantly, it was his name, Austin. And why was something addressed to him coming to her residence? Curious, she opened it. Inside, a detailed medical summary from Elite Fertility Center, donor screening history, sperm bank documentation, and an official confirmation of the live donation. Her name was on the recipient line, and on the donors, Austin Chukwuma Danjuma. The world around her froze. The sun, the wind, the music, all fell away. Her fingers trembled as she reread it. Again and again. No mistake. No coincidence. The man who had fathered her child was her ex-husband, Austin. She didn't call, didn't cry, didn't even scream. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands gripping the envelope like it had burned her, and stared into nothing. It didn't make sense. It made too much sense. The way the man had touched her, the way he had made her feel, the mask, the silence, the scar. She remembered it now, the faint scar on his shoulder, the one he got in Zanzibar when he dived too close to Coral trying to impress her. How could she have missed it? She hadn't missed it. She just didn't want to believe it. But now, the truth stood naked in front of her, and it hurt more than anything he had done before. Because this time, he hadn't just betrayed her trust. He had stolen her choice. That evening, Elsa sent her staff home early and waited. She knew he would come. He always did. And at exactly 6:47 p.m., the elevator chimed, and Austin stepped into her penthouse, holding a bottle of sparkling hibiscus juice and a soft smile. "You sent for me?" he asked, voice cautious. She didn't speak, just handed him the opened envelope. He glanced at it, then looked at her. His face shifted. Regret, fear, shame, all in one breath. "Elsa, don't," she snapped, voice sharp and trembling. "Don't start with my name like we're still something." He swallowed. "I can explain." "Explain what?" she said, stepping back from him. "That you impersonated a donor? That you lied to me? That you made me believe I was creating a life with someone I didn't know, when the whole time it was you. It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "But it did, Austin." Tears filled her eyes now, but she didn't let them fall. "You didn't just hurt me again. You used me." His voice cracked. "That's not true." "Then what is it?" He stepped forward, his voice low, filled with ache. "I saw the file by accident. I knew what you were planning. And I couldn't let someone else give you what we always dreamed of. You didn't let me choose. I know. You tricked me into motherhood." "I know, Elsa," he whispered, finally breaking. "But I swear to you, it wasn't about control. It was about love." "Don't say that word to me," she cried, voice shaking. "Love? This isn't love. This is manipulation dressed in soft words." He dropped to his knees, actually dropped, right there in the middle of her marble living room floor. "I've made 1,000 mistakes," he said, eyes glassy. "But when I found out you wanted a child, I saw my chance. Not to control you, not to win you back, but to give you a piece of what we once shared." She stared down at him, heart pounding, and for the first time in a long time, she saw the boy she once loved. Not the CEO, not the polished investor, just Austin, raw, wounded, desperate. Still, her walls held firm. "This child is mine," she said. "You have no rights to them. You signed that away the moment you pretended to be someone else." "I won't fight you," he said quietly. "Whatever you choose, I'll accept." She blinked at him. He rose slowly, chest heaving, and turned to leave. But just before he reached the door, she whispered, "Why didn't you just tell me?" He paused. "Because I didn't think you'd forgive me. Because I was afraid of losing you forever. Because I didn't know how to ask for something I no longer deserved." But all he said was, "Because I didn't know how to be honest without losing you." And then he left. Elsa stood in the stillness of her living room, the envelope still in her hand, her body still humming with 1,000 emotions she couldn't name. Anger, grief, confusion, but beneath it all, heartbreak. Not because he had lied, but because she still loved him, even now. And that was the greatest betrayal of all. The silence in Elsa's penthouse had turned sharp. Days had passed since the confrontation, and each one bled into the next like a wound refusing to close. She didn't cry, not once, but the ache beneath her ribcage didn't let up. A dull, steady ache that no herbal tea or soft jazz could quiet. Austin had texted once. Just one line. "Please forgive me. Not for me, but for the child." She hadn't responded. Forgiveness was too generous a word. What he had done was unforgivable. She had trusted the process, trusted the rules, trusted herself, and he had rewritten everything behind her back. Elsa moved through her days like a ghost. Fashion meetings, nutrition appointments, daily walks, but her heart wasn't present. She had made a decision. He was no longer welcome in her life, or in her child's. That Saturday evening, the sky cracked open. A storm rolled across Banana Island with a violence that matched her mood. Rain beat against the windows, thunder shook the walls, and yet Elsa barely flinched. She sat on the sofa wrapped in a cotton throw, staring blankly at a muted TV screen, until a pain shot through her lower abdomen. Sharp, sudden, deep. She gasped and doubled over, her hand instinctively flying to her stomach. No, 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 not now, not this. She tried to stand, but another wave of pain ripped through her, stronger this time, stealing her breath, collapsing her to the floor. Tears rushed to her eyes as fear took hold. This wasn't normal. She fumbled for her phone and hit the first name her fingers could find. Not her doctor, not her assistant. Austin. He answered before the second ring. Elsa. Her voice was breathless, trembling. I need help. Something's wrong. Where are you? He said immediately, already grabbing his car keys. Home. Please. I'm coming. Right now. Austin's car skidded to a stop outside the gate, rain pounding the windshield like bullets. He sprinted up the steps, water soaking through his shirt and into his shoes, and pounded on the door. No answer. He grabbed the spare key he still remembered was hidden in the planter and burst inside. He found her on the floor, curled into herself, soaked in sweat, breathing hard. I've got you, he whispered, scooping her into his arms without hesitation. I've got you, Elsa. She was too weak to protest, too scared to fight. At Lagoon View Private Hospital, the emergency team rushed her into an exam room. Austin didn't leave her side, gripping her hand even when she tried to pull away. You shouldn't be here, she whispered through clenched teeth. I have to be here. The doctor arrived moments later. We've stabilized the cramping. The baby's heartbeat is strong, but you'll need to be monitored for the next 48 hours. Stress, lack of rest. It's likely a combination. Elsa closed her eyes as the relief poured through her. The baby was okay. She wasn't losing her child. Not today. Not yet. Later that night, Austin sat in the chair beside her hospital bed, still in his rain-soaked clothes, refusing to leave. Elsa woke up to find him slumped forward, head resting on the edge of her mattress. She hated how peaceful he looked there, like he belonged, like this wasn't completely broken. She shifted slightly, and his eyes flew open. You stayed. I'm not leaving. You should. I know, he said softly. But I won't. She studied him in the dim light, the rawness in his face, the storm still clinging to his soaked sleeves. I told you to stay out of our lives. I heard you. Then why are you here? He exhaled. Because even if you never forgive me, I'm going to protect what's mine. You, the baby, both of you. We are not yours, she snapped, voice low but full of fire. You gave that up the day you made a choice for me. He nodded, slowly. And I live with that every minute. Silence fell between them. He leaned back, eyes bloodshot. I can't take back what I did. I know that. But when I saw you on that floor, crying out in pain, Elsa, I swear, something inside me broke. I would have done anything to take it from you. She blinked hard, turning her face away. You can't fix this with devotion, she said. You can't sit in a hospital chair and undo what you did. I'm not trying to undo it. I'm just trying to stay. Another pause. Then, please let me stay. Elsa didn't reply, but she didn't ask him to leave either. That night, as the storm outside finally passed, and soft rain became the lullaby of the quiet hospital room, Austin remained by her side, hand resting on the bed, barely touching hers. Elsa didn't move. She just lay there, hand resting over her stomach, eyes open to the dark ceiling above. She didn't trust him. She wasn't sure she ever would. But in that moment, she wasn't alone. And for tonight, that was enough. The sun dipped lazily behind the green hills of Jobby Lake, casting a golden haze across the luxury estate Elsa had rented for her recovery. The air in Abuja was different. Cooler, quieter, softer than Lagos. She had come here to rest, to reset, to breathe, and to forget. But forgetting had proven harder than she thought. Especially because Austin was here too. Not by her invitation, but by persistence. After the scare at the hospital, he had refused to leave her side. When she mentioned the doctor's advice to leave the city for a while, he made quiet arrangements to follow, never imposing but never disappearing. "I'm not here to pressure you," he had said. "I just want to make sure you're okay. That both of you are okay." Elsa hadn't fought him. She was too tired to fight. The estate villa was massive, with serene gardens, private chefs, and staff trained to anticipate every need. But Elsa found her peace in the backyard, where a quiet stream ran through carefully landscaped rocks. Every evening, she sat there barefoot, toes in the grass, hand resting over her belly. It was there that Austin found her again, just as the sky turned lilac. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, voice soft. She didn't answer, but she didn't say no. He took a seat beside her, the silence stretching between them like a blanket too heavy to move. "I didn't come here to make things harder," he said after a while. "I know you're still angry." "I'm not angry," Elsa replied. "I'm just tired. Tired of loving people who think they can rewrite my life without asking." Austin looked down at the grass. "I never saw it that way. I thought, if I could give you the baby we once dreamed of, it might make up for everything I took. You took my choice, Austin. You didn't give me a child. You robbed me of a decision." He nodded, jaw tight. "I know, and I hate myself for it every day." A pause. Elsa turned her face toward him. "But when you carried me into the hospital, when you didn't leave, I remembered." "Remembered what?" "That you're not just the man who hurt me," she whispered. "You're the man who used to bring me watermelon slices in bed at 3 a.m. because I had cravings I couldn't explain. You're the man who took 3 flights in one day just to hold my hand when I buried my aunt. You were kind. Once." He looked up, pain written all over his face. "I still am." "Are you?" "Yes, not perfect, but still yours, in a way I don't know how to unlearn." The words lingered. Elsa exhaled. She reached for a pebble and tossed it into the stream. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you. I'm not asking for that today." "Then what are you asking for?" He turned fully to face her now, his voice low. "A chance to show you who I am now. Not with promises, with presence." The next morning, Elsa found herself watching him from the kitchen balcony. He had taken a call barefoot, pacing the garden with his sleeves rolled up, speaking in that firm but gentle tone she had always admired. He smiled at the groundskeeper, helped the chef carry groceries, rubbed his chest like he always did when deep in thought. For the first time in years, she saw not the man who broke her, but the one who once held her world together. She touched her belly absent-mindedly. Maybe, just maybe, this child didn't come from a lie. Maybe they came from love too. Twisted, broken love, yes, but love all the same. Later that week, during a quiet dinner on the terrace, Austin finally said it. "I miss you." Elsa didn't reply immediately. She was sipping sobo juice, watching the stars blink above the Abuja hills. "I miss who we were," he continued. "Not the versions that hurt each other. The ones who danced in the rain. Who made playlists for each other on road trips. Who talked about baby names at 2 a.m. A silence. Then Elsa whispered, "I miss that too." He looked at her, eyes searching. "Do you think we could ever find that again?" She set her glass down. "I don't know. But, I don't want to raise this child in resentment. I want them to see love, even if it's not romantic, even if it's just respect." Austin reached across the table, his hand hesitating over hers. She let him take it. "Then let's start there," he said. "Co-parents," she replied. He smiled. "For now." She looked at him, eyes steady. "Don't push." "I won't," he promised. But deep down, they both knew this wasn't just about co-parenting. Not anymore. That night, as Elsa sat at the edge of the stream again, Austin came to join her. Not saying a word, just sitting beside her like he had every evening. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Not because she forgave him, but because something inside her had begun to soften. And healing, she realized, wasn't always loud. Sometimes, it whispered in silence. The early morning was quiet. Too quiet. Elsa woke to a dull, rhythmic ache low in her back, followed by a tightening across her abdomen that stole the breath from her lungs. She sat up slowly in bed, clutching her belly. It felt different from the Braxton Hicks she'd grown used to. This was deeper, more urgent. She checked the time. 4:02 a.m. Another sharp pulse. This was it. She reached for her phone with trembling hands and dialed without thinking. Austin. His voice came groggy but alert. Elsa? What's wrong? I think it's time. 25 minutes later, Austin burst through the villa's guest wing doors. Half-buttoned shirt, breathless, but calm. I've got you, he whispered, scooping her into his arms like it was the most natural thing in the world. By the time they reached the hospital, Elsa was fully in labor. The contractions came hard and fast. Every one of them felt like fire tearing through her spine, and every breath was a prayer for strength. Austin never left her side. Not when she screamed. Not when she broke into tears. Not even when she cursed him between clenched teeth. You did this to me, Austin, she snapped through a contraction, gripping his wrist so hard it turned red. I know, he whispered, kissing her forehead. But I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere. Hours passed like centuries. But then, finally, at 11:47 a.m., a cry filled the delivery room. A sound so loud, so pure, so full of life, it silenced everything else. A girl, the nurse said, beaming. Elsa couldn't move, could barely breathe, until the warm, wriggling weight of her daughter was placed on her chest. Dark curls, tiny fingers, a heartbeat faster than thunder. Elsa stared down at her baby through tears. Hi, my love, she whispered. Austin stood by, breath caught in his throat. He didn't touch, just watched, like someone watching the sunrise after years of darkness. Elsa looked up at him, and for the first time, she smiled. A real smile, because maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a trick. Maybe it was fate. The routine had changed. No longer dictated by boardroom meetings or fashion calendars, Elsa's life now moved to the rhythm of diaper changes, 2 a.m. feedings, and the soft hum of lullabies. Her hair was often in a bun, her heels replaced with house slippers. But strangely, she had never felt more whole. Amara had arrived like a sunrise, fierce, radiant, unstoppable. And with her came something else Elsa never expected. The slow return of peace. Austin Danjuma had not only stayed, he had softened. He read parenting books aloud in bed, made bottles with military precision, and wore spit up on his designer shirts without complaint. He never asked Elsa for more than she was willing to give. But the way he looked at her, every single day, was full of quiet hope. And that was the problem. Elsa knew what he wanted, but she wasn't going to hand her heart over easily. Not again. One Saturday morning, while Amara napped in her bassinet beside the garden swing, Elsa and Austin sat sipping Zobo under the shaded pergola. For months in, and I haven't broken anything yet, he teased, glancing down at the baby monitor. Elsa smirked. I still have my doubts. They laughed soft, easy, real. Then Elsa leaned forward, resting her glass on the side table. Austin, he looked up. There's one thing I need before we can ever talk about more. He sat straighter, suddenly serious. Okay. I need to know who you are now. Not just the father. Not just the man who stayed after the storm. I need to see what kind of man you are when no one's watching. Because that is who my daughter will look up to. He nodded slowly. And how do I show you that? Elsa's voice lowered. Not with gifts, or dinners, or promises. With actions. With something that proves you're not just doing this for me, but for yourself too. He was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and said nothing more. For days later, Elsa got a message from her assistant. Please be at Ikoyi Civic Center by 3 p.m. sharp. It's not business. It's him. She blinked, confused, but curiosity won. She arrived wearing a modest blush-tone dress and a guarded heart. What she found took her breath away. The main hall had been transformed into a private showcase. Walls filled with framed photographs, each one capturing moments from Austin's secret project. Children in underserved schools receiving donated books, renovated playgrounds, scholarship letters handed to young girls with eyes wide in disbelief. At the far end of the hall stood a single glass plaque. The Amara Grace Foundation, founded by Austin Danjuma, in honor of second chances. Elsa covered her mouth. Tears spilled before she could stop them. Austin stepped beside her, holding a folded letter. I didn't just want to say I've changed, he said softly. I wanted to do something that proves it. I've launched a foundation in your daughter's name. Our daughter's name, fully funded, fully staffed, helping women and children without voices, without options, because I never want her to think love only exists in comfort. It exists in service. Elsa stared at him, heart full and breaking at once. You did this for her? For you, Elsa. For every piece of you I broke. For every time I chose pride over partnership. And because I needed to become the kind of man worthy of standing beside you. He reached into his pocket and held up a key. No rings, no pressure, just a new home. One with space for 3 hearts. If you want it, if you'll let me come home. Elsa didn't speak. She just stepped forward, reached for his hand, and laid it over her heart. This is how you prove it. He swallowed hard. So, is that a yes? She nodded once, then again, then whispered, yes, come home. He pulled her into an embrace so tight, she thought she'd disappear into him. And maybe that was the point, to let go of everything they had been, and step into who they were now together. That night, in the quiet of their new home, with Amara asleep in her nursery, Elsa stood barefoot in the kitchen, arms around Austin's neck. I still don't trust you completely, she whispered. I know, but I love you. He smiled. I love you too, and this time, I'm staying. The Banana Island sky wore its Sunday best, streaks of gold and apricot stretched across a canvas of soft blue, as if the heavens were quietly celebrating something sacred. The garden behind their home was quiet. A breeze rustled the hibiscus trees, and the scent of lavender drifted from the flower beds Austin had planted by hand. Elsa stood barefoot on the freshly cut lawn, holding little Amara in her arms. Their daughter, now 10 months old, babbled happily, gripping her mother's necklace and tugging at it with curious fingers. Her curls were thick, her eyes wide and intelligent. She had Elsa's smile, but her father's stubborn brows. Austin watched them from the patio, leaning on the wooden railing, heart so full it ached. He had waited exactly 1 year since the day Elsa found out the truth. 12 months of showing up, of showing love, of healing without rushing, of learning that some wounds don't close with words, only with presence. But today was different. Today he was ready, and so was she. Come, Elsa called softly, turning toward him. She's been trying to walk again. You don't want to miss it. Austin smiled, slipping his phone into his pocket and walking barefoot across the grass toward his girls. His girls. The thought never stopped humbling him. He crouched as Amara squealed in recognition. Elsa carefully set her down on the grass between them, and they each held out a hand. Amara hesitated, then took one step, then another. Then she stumbled into Austin's waiting arms. Elsa clapped gently. Third time today. She's showing off. Austin grinned, kissing his daughter's cheek. She gets it from you. No, he whispered, looking into Elsa's eyes. She gets her strength from you. Elsa's smile softened. She took a step closer, brushing a curl from Austin's forehead. For a moment, the world shrank to just them. Mother, father, child. Standing beneath a sky that had seen every version of their love. And then Austin reached into his pocket. Elsa blinked as he dropped to one knee. "Austin, let me finish," he said, voice thick with emotion. He held up a delicate, rose gold ring. "Not flashy, not grand, just timeless. I proposed to you once before, when we were too proud, too broken, too unsure of who we were. And I hurt you. I betrayed your trust. I stole your choice." Her eyes shimmered. "But this time," he continued, "I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm not proposing because of guilt or pressure or desperation. I'm proposing because I love the woman you are now more than I ever did before. Because you're not just the mother of my child. You're the rhythm of my days." He took a breath. "I choose you. Today. Tomorrow. Always. Elsa Okonwa, will you marry me again? This time, not because we need to, but because we want to?" Elsa's breath hitched. She looked down at her daughter, their daughter, now pulling at blades of grass with innocent wonder. Then back at the man kneeling in front of her. The one who had betrayed her, stood beside her, fought for her, changed for her. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Yes." Austin exhaled shakily, slipping the ring onto her finger. The same hand that had once slapped him, pushed him away, and now was holding his again. She pulled him to his feet and kissed him, not softly, not cautiously, but fully. Amara clapped her tiny hands beside them, and the garden, the sky, and the world seemed to exhale in celebration. Later that evening, when the stars came out and Amara had drifted to sleep, Austin and Elsa curled up on the garden swing, her hand resting over his chest. "I didn't think I'd get a second chance," he murmured. Elsa looked up at him, eyes steady. "That's the thing about love, Austin." She pressed a kiss to his shoulder. "It chooses again." And so, from heartbreak to healing, from deception to devotion, Elsa and Austin reminded us that love doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest, patient, and brave enough to try again. Because sometimes, the greatest kind of love isn't the one that comes easy. It's the one that chooses you twice. Thank you for watching, for feeling, and for believing in second chances. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unforgettable African love stories, only on Sean's Stories. Until next time, stay soft, stay strong, and stay in love. Yellow Heart.